Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Evidence, and in today's video I am going to show you how to establish SSH key for Windows subsystem for Linux. Alright, so in the previous video I showed you how to set up SSH key for GitHub just using regular Windows and just using git bash on your regular Windows, and this will allow you to connect to GitHub using SSH on your Windows computer. And that's what I showed you here, and showed you here using the command prompt. But in today's video I am gonna show you how to set up SSH for Windows subsystem for Linux. So why do you need to set up a new SSH for WSL? That's because the SSH you set up for Windows is not gonna work in your Linux environment, and I'm gonna demonstrate this real quick. Okay, so let's go ahead and open a Linux environment, and if you're using Windows subsystem for Linux, you know you use some kind of Linux distribution to access WSL, and in this case I'm just using Ubuntu. And this is my Ubuntu here, and I'm gonna cd into my desktop and try to clone this repo. So this repo right here, I can clone it using SSH. I can also clone it using HTTPS. But as in this case, I have SSH set up, but this SSH is set up for my regular Windows computer, and this SSH is not gonna work in Linux. And I'll show you what I mean real quick. So I'll go ahead and copy this, then go back to my Linux distribution. As you can see here, I am in Linux right here, and I'm just gonna do, as you can see here, I only have one folder in this directory, and I'm just gonna do git clone, and I'm gonna paste the SSH URL I got from GitHub, and I'm gonna press enter. And then it will say, oh, permanently added to the RSA host, and then it will say permission denied public key. So could not read from remote repository. Please make sure you have correct access right. So what this means is that my Linux environment tried to access this GitHub repo. So the access was denied because I don't have a public key on GitHub that matches a private key in this environment. So in command prompt, git bash, or just on my regular Windows computer, I have a public and private key that allows my regular Windows computer to communicate with GitHub. But inside Windows subsystem for Linux, inside Linux, I don't have a key to connect GitHub to this Linux environment. That is why it says access denied. Now let's try to clone using HTTPS, and let's go ahead and copy this, and let's do again git clone. And we are able to successfully clone using HTTPS. But I don't know if you know this, but using SSH key to communicate with GitHub is just a little bit safer than using HTTPS. Now let's go ahead and let's do this. As you can see, handy code script is here because we use HTTPS to clone it. And I'm just gonna open this real quick and make some changes and re-upload it online using HTTPS. Then we're gonna set up SSH. Then you're gonna see the difference between using SSH versus using HTTPS to communicate with GitHub. So when you are in Windows subsystem for Linux, if you want to open stuff, you can just go cd, and you can just type in code and dot once you're in this directory, and then it is gonna open VS Code for you. And once you are here, and let's go ahead and make some changes, and let's call this. So I am just gonna make that change, and let's go here. And once we are here, let's go ahead and do get status. As you can see, I modified the README file, and let's go ahead and do get add. get commit message using HTTPS with WSL. And I haven't set up my GitHub configuration for Windows Subsystem for Linux. So to do that, we have to run this command. All right. So when you get your GitHub, when you get Windows Subsystem for Linux going, you have to make sure you tell your Windows Linux environment about your GitHub profile. So I forgot that. Let me go ahead and do that real quick, and I'm just gonna do it right here. So basically, to add my GitHub account to my Windows Subsystem for Linux, I'm just gonna type in this code, and then I'm gonna put my public email address. So this right here is my public GitHub email address. So if you have a GitHub account, you can choose to keep your actual GitHub account private, and then GitHub will automatically generate a public email address for you, and then you can use that for everything. So here I'm gonna put my email, and I'm gonna do enter, and now I'm gonna configure my username, and my username is evidence n. Okay, so now that we have added my GitHub account to this Linux environment, let's go ahead and try to make our commit again. Alright, so GitHub was able to recognize my GitHub account after adding these configurations. And now let's go ahead and try to push to GitHub using HTTPS. So we are gonna do git push upstream origin master. Oh, it's asking for username. That's odd, but okay. And it's asking for my password. So this is one of the differences between using Windows Subsystem for Linux and using just your regular Windows computer for, like, let's say, communicating with GitHub. Let's go ahead and get my password from LastPass. As you can see here, I've tried many times to use my username and password to upload my changes to GitHub using HTTPS, and I'm having problem with authentication. All right, so now we're gonna add SSH key and kind of see the difference between using SSH key to communicate with GitHub versus trying to use HTTPS to clone from GitHub and push stuff to GitHub. But first, I'm gonna delete this repo locally. Then we're gonna do the SSH change, and I'm gonna clone it again using SSH key. As you can see here, I no longer have the handy code scripts repo. So now we're gonna do the SSH process, and then we're gonna get this repo again, but this time we're gonna be using SSH. Let's go ahead and do that. So to add SSH to your GitHub account, you just click on your profile pic, and then you go to settings, and then you click on SSH and GPG key. And once you are here, this is where you click to add your new SSH key. But before you do that, you first have to generate your SSH key. And you can always click on this button that says generating SSH key, and it should bring you to this page. And once you're on this page, you can click on generating a new SSH key, and then it will bring you to this page. And once you're on this page, you choose your operating system. In this case, we're gonna go with Linux. All right, so once we are on Linux, we are gonna open our terminal, and we are gonna generate a new SSH key using this code right here. So go ahead and copy it, and we are gonna go back to Ubuntu here, and we are gonna right click. Looks like I didn't copy it. And then you are gonna add your email address. So basically here you can use your GitHub public email address. Like as you can use your actual email address if you're using your actual email address on GitHub, or if you have your actual email address as private and GitHub generated an email address for you, you can use that right here. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So this is my public GitHub email address. I'm gonna copy that. And I'm gonna add this right here. And I'm gonna press enter. And here it says enter a file in which you save the SSH key. As you can see here, this is the directory where SSH key is being saved. You need to pay attention to this, okay? So when we did adding SSH to the just regular Windows computer, if I can find it here, as you can see, the SSH key was added to this directory. So pay attention to that. But when you are doing Windows Subsystem for Linux, the SSH key is added to this directory. So you have to pay attention to this. You have to make sure you know where to go to find your SSH key. This is important. All right, so I'm just gonna leave the default. I'm just gonna press enter. And then it's gonna ask you for a passphrase for your SSH key. Make sure you pick something simple, easy, and straightforward, something you can easily remember. Or if you don't want a passphrase, you can just press enter. But for me, I always put a passphrase. And then to ask you to enter your passphrase again. And just like that, your SSH key has been created for your Windows Subsystem for Linux environment. All right, and it tells you right here, this is the location of your SSH key. So we need to go to this file directory in order to find our public key, and we need this public key to add it to GitHub. All right, so let's navigate to this folder. So I'm gonna do cd. Anyway, just cd till to bring you back to your home directory. And once you are here, you can just do cd.ssh, cd.ssh, and it takes you into the SSH directory. And then you can do ls. And as you can see right here in this directory, which is home slash evidence n, we have two files called id. This is your private key and this is your public key. And if you remember, it tells us like the SSH key is saved in this folder, and that's exactly where we went to find it. All right, so now we need to open our public key because we're gonna need that public key for GitHub. So let's go here and let's do code id.pub, and this is gonna open that public key in VS Code. So let's go ahead and copy this right here. And now let's go back to GitHub. And here in GitHub, you can do add new SSH. As you can see, I already have SSH for my Windows computer. I'm gonna do new SSH key. You paste your public key right here, and then you put it a title. I'm gonna call it WSL. That's Windows Subsystem for Linux Samsung. And I'm gonna do add SSH. All right. So now that we've added this public key to GitHub, we have to add the private key to our SSH agent. So basically, we have to tell our SSH agent about this private key. And basically, whenever we try to use SSH with GitHub, our SSH agent is gonna check our public key on GitHub against the private key we're gonna add to it. So just to recap real quick, you run this code right here with your GitHub email address. You go to the directory that SSH was added. You open the public SSH. You add it to GitHub. And then the next step is to add the private key to your SSH agent. And to do that, let's go back to these instructions right here. And here you have to make sure your SSH agent is running, and this is the code to do it. So if you're on Linux, the code for this part is a little bit different. Like if you're on Windows, this is the code to do it in Git Bash, but if you're on Windows Subsystem for Linux, this is the code to start your SSH agent. So we're gonna run that code right here. And we get a response, which is good. That this means our SSH agent is running. Now we are going to add our SSH private key to our environment, to our SSH agent. And once we are here, let's go ahead and do this. So basically here it says SSH add, right? So it says SSH add tilde, which means this tilde means go to your home directory. In this case, my home directory is home/evidence and ./ssh/ the private key. But the thing is, I'm already in ./ssh, so I can omit this part. I can just do SSH add and then ID. So basically, if you are in a different directory, if you're like in any other directory that is not .ssh, then you make sure you type in this full line of code right here. But since I am already in .ssh, I can just do SSH add the private key. And then it's gonna ask me for that password. Remember when you set up earlier, you entered a passphrase. It's gonna ask you for that. So now it's saying that this private SSH key has been added to my SSH agent. Alright. So now that we've added SSH to our GitHub and we've told the SSH agent in our Linux environment about this SSH key, let's go ahead and test it out to see if it works. Alright, so now that I am back in the folder for tutorials, let's go ahead and do ls. As you can see here, I only have Docker tutorial. And let's go back to GitHub. Let's go back to this repo. And let's refresh it. And this time, right, so remember, I started trying with SSH when I didn't have the SSH for Linux and it denied access. We tried with HTTPS and we had a little bit of problem of pushing to GitHub. Now let's go ahead and do SSH again. Copy. Remember? Now we have added SSH key, right? We've added SSH key for our Linux environment. So let's go here and git clone. And you're gonna press enter. And it works. It works. Isn't that amazing? So remember the first time I tried to clone with SSH, I tried to clone this repo with SSH, I got an error message. It says, permission denied. Hey, you don't have the right to do this. Go away. But now that we've added SSH for Windows, Subsystem for Linux, we can use SSH to clone our repo from GitHub. Now I'm just going to make a few changes to this repo and then see and then try to push it back online to see if it works, right? That's the whole point of this. And sometimes if it's your first time cloning from GitHub, it will say that, hey, GitHub is not a known host. Would you want to add GitHub to your known host? And you just type in yes. This is, let me show you here. So basically, if it's your first time cloning from GitHub, you might get this warning right here, and then you just type in yes, and GitHub will be added to your known host. And it's basically saying that, hey, GitHub has been recognized using the public key and it has been added to your known host. So next time when you communicate with GitHub, your environment will be like, oh yeah, I already know about this object or this computer or this IP address. So that's our repo that we just cloned, and now let's do cd. Actually, I can just do code. I don't know why sometimes when you open code using the terminal, it doesn't show up. You have to close it and then reopen it again. Now it is showing up. So let's go ahead and add a few changes here. Let's call it so we've made changes to our repo. This is modified, as you can see right here. Let's go back to Windows Subsystem for Linux. And let's do cd. Let's do get status. As you can see right here, we've modified our readme. Let's go ahead and do get add and do get commit. Now, the moment of truth. Let's try to push our repo back online, and this time you're going to be using SSH, right? So let's go ahead and do git push upstream origin master. Boom, it worked. All right. So now let's go back to this repo and let's go down refresh. And right there, that's our changes. The changes we made locally, we were able to push it online successfully using SSH in Windows Subsystem for Linux. That is amazing. I mean, I knew it was gonna work, but I still get excited when stuff works, even though I know it's gonna work. So remember the first time I did this, I was having problem. The first time, let's go ahead and go back to our history here. The first time I tried to clone using SSH before I added SSH. So I had SSH for my regular computer, but not SSH for Linux. We got to run into problem there because it says, hey, Windows Subsystem for Linux doesn't recognize this SSH key. It doesn't have communication. Then we cloned using HTTPS. But then when we try to push online, we ran into problems with username and password. But after adding SSH for Windows Subsystem for Linux, we are able to clone using SSH, and we are able to push back online using SSH. So that's pretty good. And that's pretty much it for this video. So I hope you like it. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. In the next video, I am going to be showing you how to add SSH to your Bitbucket. So some people use Bitbucket instead of GitHub. The next video will focus on adding SSH to Bitbucket. So the process is a little bit different but similar. Please share this video with anybody else you think will benefit from it. And also, you can find me online at evidencen.com. So this is my primary website where I have my data science blog posts. And as time goes by, I will add more stuff to my data science blog. So visit me online at evidencen.com. And once you are here, you can click on free data science resources and it will take you to this page. And this is where I put my resources. So I create a lot of data science content. And I have a lot of notebooks, and all those notebooks end up here. And you can also sign up here to get my email updates. So I try to send out emails every week telling people what content I produced the previous week. So sign up here at machinelearningeducation.com/free. I'm also going to put this link in the description. And also you can visit me online at machinelearningeducation.com. And once you're here, you can support my work if you want to. No pressure at all. And I might change this website later. So if you come here to machinelearningeducation.com and you don't see this page to support my work, rest assured the link to support my work is going to be somewhere up here. So that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.